The nurse entered the room 304 of the maternity host to meet Elena alone, holding her newborn daughter as silent tears ran through her face. It was 3:47 in the morning, and not a single person had appeared to meet the baby who had just arrived in the world after 18 hours of labor. "Where is your husband?" asked Nurse Jennifer, checking the vital signs of the baby. Elena just shook her head, unable to form words. What she didn't know was that at that very moment David was just 15 minutes away, in her secretary's luxury apartment, celebrating with champagne, a promotion she had invented to justify her absence. Elena Santos, 29, had worked as a forensic accountant specializing in corporate fraud audit for 6 years before taking maternity leave. Her reputation for the global technology company was impeccable. She was known as the woman who never let anything pass. Executives trembled when she appeared with her spreadsheets and calculators, because Elena had an almost supernatural ability to detect lies through inconsistent numbers and suspicious behaviors. Married 4 years ago to David Richardson, a successful real estate broker who won 6-digit commissions selling mansions to the city's elite, she always believed she had built the perfect marriage. David was charming, ambitious, and knew exactly what to say to make Elena feel special. At least it was like that at first. During the last 8 months of pregnancy, David had become increasingly distant, claiming pressure on work and demanding millionaire customers who needed attention 24 hours a day. "You don't understand, Elena," he always said that she questioned her prolonged absences. "These rich customers don't expect. If I don't answer their midnight calls, I miss the sale." But Elena, trained to detect suspicious standards in complex financial reports, began to notice inconsistencies in her husband's life. The emergency meetings always coincided with the days when Amanda Hartley, her new 24-year-old secretary, worked late. The fuel receipts in his car showed mileage incompatible with the commercial routes he claimed to do. Small details that an ordinary husband would ignore, but who jumped in the eyes of an experienced auditor. During the 6th month of pregnancy, Elena secretly began her own marriage audit. She discreetly installed a shared location app on their phones, claiming it would be useful for medical emergencies during pregnancy. David agreed without suspecting anything, thinking that his pregnant wife was just being paranoid safely. "You need to rest, Elena. Tomorrow everything will seem different," the nurse murmured, adjusting the blanket around the baby. But Elena knew that nothing would be different. During the last 3 months, she had secretly documented every lie, every inconsistency, every evidence of the betrayal that unfolded before her eyes as a meticulously detailed audit report. Your phone vibrated. A message from David. "Meeting extended until too late. California important client finally closed the $2 million business. Impossible to get to the hospital today. I sent flowers. Kisses." It was the 10th similar message she received in the last 2 weeks, each slightly different, but following the same pattern of elaborated lies. This time, however, she did something different, took a screenshot out of the message, and saved her in a secret folder on her phone called Evidencia Project Justice. This folder already contained 47 contradictory messaging screen captures, 23 suspicious fuel receipts, and 12 telephone conversation audio recordings that it had captured, accidentally, when David spoke softly in the home office. Elena looked at the message time, 3:52 in the morning. What California client closed multi-millionaire business at this time, considering the time zone difference? She discreetly opened the location app they shared and saw that David was in the Riverside Gardens, the most expensive neighborhood of town, exactly where Amanda lived in an apartment she definitely couldn't afford with secretary salary. A bitter smile crossed Elena's pale face, more evidence for her growing digital collection. It quickly captured the location screen, noting that David had been at the same address for more than 6 consecutive hours. "California client," she murmured sarcastically to her sleeping daughter. At 5:30 in the morning, Elena received an automatic bank notification on her cell phone. David had used the joint credit card to buy Champagne Dom Perignon and Belgian chocolates imported in a conception store 24 hours. Not exactly the type of purchase you make after an exhaustive business meeting. Another screenshot for your evidence folder. At 6:15 a.m., Elena heard family voices in the corridor. David had arrived, but he was not alone. Along with him was Amanda Hartley, her 24-year-old blonde secretary Elena had met at 3 company parties in the last 2 years. Amanda had always been overly friendly to Elena, asking about pregnancy and praising her hair, her clothes, her intelligence, behavior that Elena now recognized as guilt, disguised as sympathy. They whispered and laughed softly in the hall, clearly trying not to be heard. but their voices echoed through the silent corridor of maternity as if they were talking in a megaphone. Elena knew the acoustics of that hospital, had visited 3 times during pregnancy complications, and knew that the sounds easily traveled the empty corridors in the early hours of the morning. "Just 5 minutes, honey. I need to keep appearances with the new mom," she heard David say through the ajar door, her voice, laden voice. "Then we come home and we celebrate our freedom, right? She will be so busy with diapers and bottles that she won't even notice when I'm not around. It will be perfect." Elena closed her eyes, pretending to sleep as her heart pushed, not in pain, but from a cold, calculated anger that she recognized from her days auditing corrupt executives who thought they have circumvented the system. She discreetly activated the recorder of her phone, positioning it strategically under the pillow to capture every word of the conversation that was still in the hallway. "Are you absolutely sure she doesn't suspect anything?" Amanda asked with her sweet, manipulative voice that Elena now realized that she always loaded fake notes. "She seems to be too smart to be easily deceived. And that work of her, doesn't she live looking for inconsistencies?" "Elena? Please." David laughed with a genuine disdain that made Elena tighten his fists involuntarily. "She's so focused on pregnancy and those boring reports that she barely pays attention to me for months. Accountant has no imagination for these romantic things. It's just numbers and spreadsheets on her head. She would never suspect that I can have needs that a pregnant woman just can't meet." "And after the child is born?" Amanda insisted, apparently still worried. "Won't she want more attention to you? More family time? That's why it's the perfect time to become official," David responded with arrogant confidence that made Elena memorize every word. "With a newborn baby, she will be too exhausted to question anything. I'll ask for divorce, claim incompatibility, and that's it. She gets the child. I'm free to live my life for real." David entered the room alone, placing such a obviously falsely rehearsed concern that Elena almost laughed loudly. He had practiced this face in the mirror, she was sure. He approached the crib, looked briefly to his daughter as if it were any object in a showcase, and turned to Elena with the performance of dedicated husband she probably used to impress customers. "How are you, love?" he asked in a voice Elena now realized sounding completely artificial. "Sorry I didn't come before. It was an absolutely impossible night at work. The California client finally closed that $2.5 million business we had been chasing for months. It was worth every minute of waiting." Elena noticed how history had evolved from $2 million in the message to $2.5 million now, another inconsistency for her mental evidence collection. "It's okay," Elena responded in a calmly controlled voice, studying every micro-expression on his face while mentally compared his current version with all the other contradictory stories he had told in recent weeks. "The baby was born at 2:33 a.m., she continued, watching carefully if David would show any genuine interest. "It weighed 3.2 pounds. It's a healthy and perfect girl." Elena took a purposeful break. "I thought you would like to hold it." David nodded, already checking messages on his cell phone, probably from Amanda, who was still waiting in the corridor as an impatient lover. Good. Beautiful as the mother, I'm sure," he murmured without even looking right at the child. "Look, I'll have to go out again in a few hours. That same customer wants to expand the business and close 3 more properties early today. You know what this high-standard broker life is like?" He gave Elena's forehead a mechanical kiss, the same kind of courteous kiss but completely devoid of real affection she had seen him give in PA far away from boring family meetings. Elena realized that David had not even asked if she had chosen a name for her daughter, nor demonstrated any genuine interest in her well-being after almost 20 hours of hard labor. "How will you call our daughter?" Elena asked deliberately, testing if he remembered the conversations they had had about names during pregnancy. David paused for 2 seconds too long, enough time to confirm that he had completely forgotten. "Ah, as you both want. You taste better for these things," he said vaguely, already walking toward the door. Through the bedroom window, Elena watched David and Amanda walking together the parking lot in the early hours of a sunny morning. She noticed how Amanda walked with the exaggerated confidence of those who already considered the winner, swinging the newly huge hair and laughing too loudly to the hospital's silent atmosphere. David put his arm around her waist with a physical intimacy that Elena had not seen directed to her at least 6 months. Elena took her phone, and with hands that trembled not in sadness, but from a cold determination, recorded a 52-second video that perfectly captured not only the passionate kiss between them, but also Amanda entering the side of David's car passenger, the same car he claimed to use for professional meetings. She also discreetly photographed the car's license plate and the hospital's digital clock time, creating unquestionable timestamp evidence that David had lied about absolutely everything. At that moment, holding her newborn daughter in her arms while watching her husband through the window to kiss another woman in the hospital parking lot, where she had just given birth alone, Elena Santos made a decision that would completely change the three-life course. David Richardson and Amanda Hartley didn't know, but they just made the biggest mistake of their existence. They had chosen cheating with a woman who had spent 6 years professionally destroying people who thought they were smarter than they really were. Elena was not just an accountant. She was a forensic expert in exposing liars, fraudsters, and manipulators using her own weapons against them. And now, gently packing his daughter while mentally organized all the digital evidence she had collected in the last 3 months, Elena was about to conduct the most personal, meticulous, and devastatingly complete audit of her professional career. At 7:23 in the morning, she sent a seemingly innocent message to David. "The baby is okay. Go back when you can, love. I'll be waiting." But what David didn't know was that this message was not an invitation. It was a statement of war disguised as surrender. If you are enjoying this very planned female intelligence and justice story, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because what Elena Santos did next with her forensic audit skills has transformed a simple marriage betrayal into the most elegantly brutal revenge you've ever seen. 3 days later, Elena was at home trying to breastfeed Sophia, the name she had chosen alone without consulting David, when he appeared carrying 2 pizzas and a bouquet of withered flowers of the supermarket. It was his first visit from the hospital, and he entered the house like a casual guest, not the father of a newborn. "How are my girls?" he asked with forced enthusiasm, leaving the pizzas on the table already covered with diapers and medications. Elena noticed that he didn't even wash his hands before approaching the baby, and that Amanda's sweet perfume still impregnated her social shirt. "Sophia is not sleeping well," Elena replied, watching how David avoided looking straight at her daughter. "The pediatrician said she needs more queries. It has some lower digestion complications that require follow-up." David sighed with poorly disguised irritation. "Complications? Elena, you can't turn every normal detail into drama. Babies cry, it's natural." He took his cell phone and started typing. "By the way, I will need to travel next week. Important customer in Miami wants me to personally drive some visits to properties." Elena had known David's customers for years. "I had never mentioned anything about Miami before. One more lie for your growing collection." "How many days?" he asked, already knowing that he would not get an honest answer. 5, perhaps 7 days. It depends on negotiations." David barely looked at the cell phone. "Amanda goes with me to take care of documentation and translations. You know how complicated these international businesses are." At that moment, Elena completely understood the extent of her husband's cruelty. He was not just cheating. He was rubbing the betrayal in her face with a gradeism that bordered on sociopathy. He was planning a honeymoon disguised as a business trip, leaving a newly parked woman alone with a baby who needed special medical care. "Amanda speaks Spanish?" Elena asked calmly, testing another inconsistency in his story. David hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "She is learning. That's why you need real practice with natives." Another obvious lie. Amanda had studied French at college. Elena clearly remembered conversations at company parties. That night, after David leaves claiming meeting to prepare the trip, Elena opened her laptop and began to do something she knew better than anyone: a complete forensic investigation. For 6 years hearing corrupt companies, she had learned that arrogant men always left digital tracks where they went. It started with Amanda's social networks. The secretary had posted a photo in an expensive restaurant 3 days earlier, the same restaurant where David had claimed to have had a work meeting late. In the photo, Amanda wore a pearl necklace that Elena had never seen before, but seemed suspiciously expensive for a secretary's salary. Elena widened the photo and noticed something interesting in the reflection of the window behind Amanda: a clearly visible blue shirt man sitting at the table, the same blue shirt that David had worn that day and left in the basket of dirty clothes with tomato sauce stains. Continuing his investigation, Elena accessed the joint bank accounts she shared with David. In the last 3 months, he had made a series of cash withdrawals, always in round values of $500 or $1,000, always on Thursdays. Elena crossed these dates with GPS location history and discovered a pattern. All withdrawals were made near Amanda's apartment. But the most devastating discovery came when Elena accessed David's corporate credit card statement. There were 2 airline tickets to Cancun, no Miami, on behalf of David Richardson and Amanda Hartley, with date for next week. The reserved hotel was Sunset Romance Resort, an establishment that was announced specifically as paradise for couples in love. Elena felt a mixture of anger and satisfaction. David was not just a traitor. He was an incompetent traitor who had left digital evidence everywhere. He underestimated his wife's intelligence so much that she didn't even bother to properly cover her tracks. In that dawn, while Sophia slept in the crib next to her bed, Elena created a detailed spreadsheet entitled Marriage Audit. David Richardson. In 6 years of marriage, she had never applied her professional skills to her own personal life. Now he finally understood why his auditor instincts had been alert in recent months. The spreadsheet contained columns for dates, schedules, GPS locations, suspicious spending, contradictions in stories, photographic evidence, and audio recordings. In just one night of work, Elena had documented 23 proven lies, 11 financial inconsistencies, and 7 photographic evidence of infidelity. But Elena Santos was not a woman who acted on emotional impulse. His analytical mind was already 3 steps ahead, formulating something much more elaborate than a simple confrontation about betrayal. David had made a fatal mistake by underestimating a forensic expert, and now Elena was about to conduct the most meticulous and personally satisfactory investigation in her career. The next morning, David called saying that he needed to look for some work documents at home. Elena welcomed him with a warm smile, offered coffee, and asked casually about the details of the trip to Miami. As he elaborated new lies about meetings and customers, Elena discreetly recorded each word in the mobile app. "Will you miss me?" David asked with false concern, kissing her forehead before leaving. "Of course I will," Elena answered softly. "I'll tell you the days until you come back." What David didn't know was that Elena would really tell her days, not longing, but because each day of the business trip would be more irrefutable evidence that he had abandoned his newborn family to have an international extramarital affair, and every evidence would be carefully catalogued, timesped, and prepared for the right moment. While David left the house whistling carefree, Elena watched out the window and murmured to Sophia, "Dad thinks Mom is just a naive accountant. He will learn in the worst possible way Mom is much more than that." At that moment, holding his daughter as she watched David to drive happily toward Amanda's apartment to plan her honeymoon secret, Elena Sant, they made a second decision that would definitely seal her husband's fate. She would no longer be a betrayed wife in silence. It would be a forensic auditor in search of justice. And every new lie David told would simply be more ammunition for the methodically planned destruction that he couldn't even imagine being approaching. The following Monday, Elena received an unexpected connection from Marcus Herrera, a lawyer who specialized in family law who had known years ago in a case of forensic audit where she had provided financial analysis for a complex divorce. "Elena, I heard from my colleague that you may need my services. Can I spend this afternoon? How did you know?" Elena asked, surprised as she changed Sophia in diaper. "Let's say certain suspicious financial movements draw attention in our area. Credit cards being used for romantic passages when it is officially business travel." Marcus paused. "Cancun is not exactly known for its business convention centers." Elena smiled for the first time in weeks. He had forgotten that Marcus had access to research systems she didn't even imagine. "At 3 in the afternoon it is good." That afternoon, Marcus arrived carrying a bulky paste and a laptop. Elena, in 15 years of career, rarely saw someone document evidence of infidelity as meticulously as you did. "This," he said, pointing to her spreadsheet, "is practically a doctorate in how to legally destroy an unfaithful spouse." Elena served coffee and sat at the table. "Marcus, I don't just want a divorce. I want complete justice. David is planning to leave myself with a newborn baby to travel with his lover, using our joint money, lying about work, and on top of that I am too stupid to find out." "And what exactly do you have in mind?" Marcus asked, already suspecting that Elena had thought of something beyond the obvious. "First, I need him to make a few more public and documented errors. Second, I want that when everything comes to light, he can't deny, minimize, or distort the truth." Elena opened her laptop. "David has always been arrogant, but lately it's completely careless. He thinks he knows me, but he has never paid real attention to who I am professionally." Marcus examined the documentation Elena had prepared. "This is better than 90% of the cases I get. But do you have something specific in mind beyond separation?" "David works for Prestige Realty, the city's most conservative real estate company. The president, Thomas Morrison, is known for his traditional family values and has a strict policy against employees who cause public scandals." Elena showed Marcus some research she had done. "David is the company's second most successful salesman. His professional reputation is everything to him." As they talked, Elena's phone rang. It was David, calling what it seemed to be a noisy environment. "Hi, love. I'm at the airport. A late flight. The trip to Miami can last a few more days." "Very demanding customer." Elena activated the lively for Marcus to hear. "Okay, dear. Sophia and I will be fine. Is it forecast to come back? Maybe Thursday or Friday. I will send business photos by WhatsApp to see how the trip is being productive." David laughed nervously. "By the way, Amanda is helping a lot with translations. These Latin customers are complicated. After off, Marcus shook his head. Does he really think you're naive? Latin customers in Cancun? This is where it gets interesting, Elena said, opening Instagram from Amanda. She can't resist posting everything online. Look, the screen showed an Amanda photo at an airport with the work trip with my favorite boss. Blessed outdoors, work hard, play hard. Marcus laughed. They are basically documenting their own crime. Exactly, but I want more than evidence of betrayal. I want David to expose himself completely. Elena showed Marcus a detailed plan. He will come back from this trip feeling invincible, thinking he has deceived me perfectly. That's where I will create a situation where he will have to choose between lying blatantly or admitting the truth. During the following days, Elena executed the first phase of her plan. He created a fake Instagram account and began to follow Amanda, who easily accepts followers for vanity. Through this account, Elena had access to all real-time posts of the business trip, photos in romantic resorts, tropical drinks, boat tours to couples, and clearly visible David in various images. On Wednesday, Elena received a message from David. Business going very well. Customer decided to buy 3 properties. I'll be until Saturday to finalize contracts. Kiss for you both. Elena captured a monthly screenshot and compared him with the simultaneous post of Amanda on Instagram, a selfie at a couple of couples with David in the background, clearly relaxing and combining bathrobes. The caption said, "Nothing better than relaxation after hard work." Perfect, Elena murmured, saving everything in her evidence folder. On Thursday, Elena executed the second phase. He called Prestige Realty if he passes an interested client. I would like to talk to David Richardson about some properties in Miami. I learned that he is there closing big business. The receptionist seemed confused. Sorry, ma'am, but Mr. Richardson is on a personal license this week. We have no customer or property in Miami today. Elena pretended to be surprised. There must be any misunderstanding. Can I talk to his supervisor? Thomas Morrison, the conservative president of the company, answered in person. Can I help her with something? David is on a familiar license. His wife has just had a baby. How strange, Elena said carefully. My husband mentioned having seen David at a business conference in Miami, accompanied by an assistant. Maybe another David Richardson? There was a long break. Madam, can I have your name and phone? I would like to clarify this situation. Elena hung up quickly, but knew she had planted the perfect seed of doubt in David's notoriously rigid boss. That night, Elena organized all the evidence in a professional digital presentation, complete with timestamps, GPS locations, and comparative analysis of contradictory stories. Each David's lie was cataloged and crossed with irrefutable photographic evidence. Marcus called on Friday night. Elena, I just received an interesting call. Apparently someone from Prestige Realty is asking questions about possible employees' irregularities. Your husband has no idea of the storm that is approaching. Elena looked at Sophia, who slept quietly in her crib. David always said I was just an unimaginated accountant for romantic things. He will find out that accountants have imagination for things much more impactful than romance. On Saturday morning, Elena received the message she was waiting for. Arriving home tonight, travel was a total success. I can't wait to tell you everything. I bought gifts for my favorite girls. Love you. Elena responded lovingly. What a wonder. I prepared a special surprise to celebrate your arrival. I invited some people to dinner. It will be unforgettable. What David didn't know was that Elena had invited very specific people to that dinner. Marcus, Thomas Morrison of Prestige Realty, who had accepted the invitation when Elena called saying she wanted to clarify misunderstandings about her husband, and David's mother, who still believed her son was working heroically to support her family. While David flew back from his secret honeymoon, completely confident that he had deceived his naive, Elena finished preparations for a night that would destroy not only her marriage but her career, her reputation, and her self-image of intelligent and superior man. At 6:30 p.m., David Richardson would park in the home garage by imagining that he returned to a submissive wife and a perfectly organized double life. But Elena Santos, the simple accountant, was about to lead the most devastating presentation of her career, a complete audit of the life of a man who made the fatal error of underestimating the woman who had just left with a newborn baby. The welcome dinner Elena had prepared was not a celebration, it was a court, and David had no idea that the defendant, the evidence, and the sentence itself would be simultaneously. David came home at 19:15 carrying 2 bags and a confident smile from those who had just returned from the most productive business trip in his career. He parked in the garage humming a song Elena immediately recognized, the same one that Amanda had posted on Instagram stories during the romantic boat trip in Cancun. Hi love, I arrived. David shouted cheerfully, leaving his bags at the entrance. "Where's my princess? Dad brought gifts from Mexico. From Miami." Elena appeared in the room carrying Sophia, wearing an elegant dress that David hasn't seen for months. "Welcome, dear. How are businesses with Latin customers in Miami?" he asked with a warm smile, purposely emphasizing every word of his lie. "Fantastic. I closed 3 millionaire contracts." Amanda was essential with the Spanish translations. David kissed Elena on the face, without realizing how she had stiffened with the casual mention of her lover. "By the way, where are the people you invited? I can barely wait to tell about the successes of the trip." "They are already here," Elena said, guiding David to the dining room. "I prepared a very special surprise to celebrate your return." David entered the room and stopped abruptly. Sitting at the table were Marcus Herrera, clearly a lawyer for the organized documents in front of him, Thomas Morrison, his head of the Prestige Realty, with a serious expression that David had never seen before, and her own mother, Dorothy Richardson, holding a tablet and looking deeply disappointed. "David," Thomas Morrison got up slowly, "I'm glad we had a very interesting conversation with your wife while you were in Miami." Trust in David's face began to falter. "Mr. Morrison, Mother, what are you doing here?" He looked at Elena, who kept a serene smile. "Elena, I didn't understand this surprise." Marcus opened a bulky folder. "David, I'm Marcus Herrera, a lawyer specializing in family law. His wife hired me to solve some inconsistencies in his marriage." "Inconsistencies?" David laughed nervously. "What kind of inconsistencies? Elena, what is this?" Elena put Sophia in the nearby cradle and returned to the table carrying her laptop. "Dear, during your productive trip I discovered some interesting things. For example," she clicked on the laptop, projecting the screen on the living room TV. "These are her airline tickets to Cancun, no Miami, bought with our joint credit card." The screen clearly showed 2 passages, David Richardson and Amanda Hartley, destination Cancun, Mexico, with reservations at Sunset Romance Resort. David paled instantly. "Wait, I can explain this," David started, but Elena kept clicking. "Here are the photos Amanda posted on Instagram during the trip." The screen now showed a sequence of photos. Amanda and David in spa robes, toasting with champagne, romantic walks, and at a candlelight with "the best days of my life with my favorite person." Dorothy Richardson let out a sigh of horror. "David, what is that? You told me you were working." Thomas Morrison crossed his arms. "David, to clarify, you have requested family license to take care of your wife after delivery. I have not authorized any business travel to Miami, and we definitely have no customers or properties there." David desperately tried to control the situation. "Mr. Morrison, I can explain. It was a last-minute opportunity, a special customer that—" Elena clicked again. The screen now showed the audio recording she had captured at the hospital. David's voice clearly echoed through the room. "She will be so busy with diapers and bottles that she won't even notice when I'm not around. It will be perfect." The silence that followed was deafening. David looked around the table, seeing his life collapse before the eyes of the most important people of his career and family. "Elena, how did you get that?" David asked, his voice now flutters. Did you spy me?" "I deculted," Elena answered calmly, "just as audit fraudulent companies. You have left digital tracks everywhere, David. GPS, credit cards, social networks, contradictory messages." She clicked once again, showing the meticulous spreadsheet with 47 cataloged lies, timestamps, and cross-evidence. Marcus leaned forward. "David, in addition to documented marital unfaithfulness, there are serious issues here. Improper use of marital financial resources, employer lies, a newborn family abandonment who needed special medical care." Thomas Morrison shook his head with disgust. "David, Prestige Realty has a clear policy on moral conduct. You lied to the company, used a false family license to have an extramarital affair, and exposed our reputation to public scandal." He got up. "Consider yourself fired effectively immediately, and wait for contact from our legal department about reimbursement of fraudulent license days." David turned desperately to his mother. "Mom, please, you need to understand." Dorothy Richardson looked at her granddaughter in her crib and then to her son. "David, I created you with values. Your wife just gave birth to my granddaughter, and did you leave it to have an affair with a girl of your sister's age?" She got up, took her bag. "I don't have a child who does this to his family." "Mom, no." David tried to approach, but she was already walking to the door. "Elena," Dorothy turned before leaving, "you and Sophia are welcome in my house when they want. My son showed who he really is, but you are my family." David was now standing in the middle of the room, tremendously, with his destroyed career, undone family, and ruined reputation. "Elena, please, can we talk about this in particular? I can change, I can explain everything." Elena looked at him with a rain that scared David more than any scream could have done. David, you called me naive. I said that accountants have no imagination for romantic things. She closed the laptop. You were right about one thing. I really have no imagination for romance, but I have an excellent imagination for justice. Marcus kept the documents. David, divorce papers will be filed Monday. Based on the evidence, Elena will have complete custodia of Sofia. The house will be in her name and you will be responsible for alimony. I suggest strongly you cooperate. David looked around the empty room. Thomas had already left, his mother had left, and Elena was putting Sofia to sleep with a tranquility that brutally contrasted with her growing despair. How did you manage to plan all this? David asked, his voice now just a defeated whisper. Elena first smiled in months, not a smile of happiness but of deep satisfaction of a well-performed job. Just as I always did my work, David, with meticulousness, accurate documentation, and patience to wait for the right time to present the evidence. That night, after David leaves the house carrying only a suitcase and the devastation of a life destroyed by his own lies, Elena sat in the sake chair breastfeeding Sofia. For the first time since the birth of his daughter, he felt a genuine peace. Her phone vibrated with a message from Amanda. David said she will separate and stay with me. I can barely wait to start our life together. Elena laughed softly. Amanda had no idea that David was now unemployed, without home, and facing legal processes. Elena did not respond to the message. In a few hours, Amanda would find out on her own that she had bet on the wrong horse. The romantic trip had also been the last moment of happiness that couple would have together. While Sofia fell asleep in her arms, Elena looked out the window to the bright city and muttered, "Some men think they may have everything. They find out too late that smart women always charge interest composed of betrayal." What Elena didn't know yet was that her justice story was just beginning, and that the consequences of what she had done that night would create waves that would reach places she didn't even imagine possible. 6 months after that memorable dinner, Elena was sitting on her new office on the 20th third floor of a skyscraper in the city center. The plate at the door said, Elena Santos, Forensic Consulting and Specialized Audit. His company had grown exponentially after the case that made it famous, the complete exhibition of the best documented marriage fraud in local history. Sofia, now 8 months old, played quietly in the portable cradle in the office, while Elena reviewed contracts from 3 new customers. Divorce lawyers in the whole city sought it for complex cases of infidelity, and companies hired their services to investigate internal fraud. His reputation, like the woman who never lets you pass, had spread far beyond the corporate world. The phone rang. It was Marcus, calling from the court. Elena, I just left the final hearing. David lost the request for revision of the alimony. The judge said that men who abandon newly parked wives to have extramarital cases do not deserve judicial clement. Elena smiled, swinging Sofia on her lap. And how was he? Destroyed. Slim, bearded to do, crumpled clothes. Apparently she's living on a friend's house sofa since she was dumped from the apartment she shared with Amanda. Marcus paused. By the way, did you know that Amanda finished with him last week? It doesn't surprise me, Elena answered, remembering the message she had received from Amanda 2 weeks ago. Elena, I need to talk to you urgently. I found out who David really is. The conversation with Amanda had been revealing. The young secretary had discovered that David had lied about everything. She was unemployed for months, had used her credit cards to pay the debts he had accumulated, and even worse, she had found that he was trying to seduce her younger sister of only 19 years through Instagram messages. Elena, you tried to warn me at the company's parties, Amanda had confessed between tears. I thought you were just jealous, but you were trying to protect me. Forgive me for destroying your family. Elena had responded with the same serenity that had characterized her entire journey. Amanda, you didn't destroy my family. You helped me find that I never had a royal family to start. Thanks for that. That afternoon, Elena received an unexpected visit. Dorothy Richardson, former maid, appeared carrying gifts to Sofia and a thick envelope. Elena, dear, I came to bring the inheritance documents. Ivy know? Elena asked, confused. I changed my will. David is no longer my heir. Dorothy sat, taking Sofia on her lap. This girl and you are my true family now. The beach house, the savings account, everything will be you. David made her choices. Elena was speechless. Dorothy, you don't need. Yes, I need. I created a monster without morals, and now I see that my true daughter is you. Dorothy smiled at Sofia. Besides, I want this little princess to have the best possible future. At 6 p.m., Elena was ending her work when Thomas Morrison appeared in her office. David's former chief looked nervous. Miss Santos, I came to offer a proposal. Prestige Realty needs a forensic auditor to investigate internal irregularities. After we find out about David, we realize that other employees may be following the same pattern. Elena leaned into the chair. And what would be exactly my function? We want you to be our director of corporate integrity. 6-digit salary, own office, dedicated team. We need someone with your special competence to detect liars. It was ironic. The same company that had employed David now wanted to hire Elena to investigate men like him. I will consider your proposal, Mr. Morrison. That night, Elena was at home preparing dinner when the intercom played. It was David. Through the video porter, she saw him, thin, displeased, with deep dark circles and clothes that were already expensive, but now they looked like a ghost of better days. Elena, please, I need to talk to you. Just 5 minutes. Against Marcus's advice, Elena descended to talk to him in the garden, keeping distance safe. David seemed to have aged 10 years in 6 months. Elena, I spoiled everything. I lost my job, my house, my family. Amanda left me when she found out she was out of money. David looked at the window where Sophia played with Dorothy. Can I at least see my daughter? Elena looked at the man who was once her husband, now just a regretful stranger too late. David, Sophia doesn't need a father who leaves her when she is convenient and comes back when she is desperate. She needs stability. But I changed, Elena. I can be different. You didn't change, David. You just faced the consequences of your choices. Elena turned to get in. When I was cheating on me, you said I was just an unimaginable accountant for romantic things. You were right. I really have no imagination for romance. But I have an excellent imagination to build a better life. 2 weeks later, Elena was on the stage of the city's convention center, speaking at the International Forensic Audit Seminar. His presentation, documenting truths, how digital evidence turned my life, had exhausted the tickets. Women, you have amazing skills that often underestimate, Elena told an audience of 800 people. We are trained from an early age to observe details, detect inconsistencies, document behaviors. These are not weaknesses, they are superpowers. In the audience, several women noted frantically. Elena continued, the best revenge is not to destroy who harms you. It is to build something so solid, so successful, that they realize what they lost when they chose to underestimate you. After the lecture, a young woman approached. Dr. Santos, my husband is cheating on me and I have proof, but I don't know what to do. Elena delivered her professional card. Make an appointment. Let's talk about how to turn your evidence into a new life. That night, Elena put Sophia to sleep and sat in the office at home, the same place where she had discovered the lies of David months ago. Now the walls were covered with recognition certificates, photos with satisfied customers, and a special frame with the first report about your business. Your phone vibrated with a message from a client. Dr. Elena, thanks to the evidence you helped me collect, I got not only divorce but also the full guard of children and half of my ex. He tried to convince me that I was paranoid and controlling, but you showed me that my instincts were right. Thanks for teaching that smart women are not just well-informed. Elena looked through the room window, where she could see the Prestige Realty lighted distance building. Tomorrow would respond to Thomas Morrison. Yes, she would accept the position of Corporate Integrity Director, not for revenge against David, but because he had found his true vocation, helping people discover and document truths that others tried to hide. Sophia fell asleep in the crib next to the desk, holding a small toy violin, Dorothy gift to make sure the granddaughter has all the mother's talents. Elena caressed her daughter's hair and murmured, my princess mom learned that there are 2 types of people in the world, those who underestimate intelligent women, and those who learn the hard way never to do that. The story of Elena Santos spread far beyond the city. Her case became a case study in law schools. Her digital documentation method was adopted by law firms across the country, and she became the most sought-after expert for complex matrimonial infidelity. David Richardson, in turn, never completely recovered. He now works as a used car salesman at a suburb dealership, living in a small apartment and sharing expensive co-workers. Amanda married a doctor 2 years later and lives in another state, having completely cut contact with her past. Elena has proven that true revenge is not to return the damage suffered, to achieve the success that her opponents could never imagine. She transformed the betrayal that almost destroyed her into the fuel that boosted her for an extraordinary life. Have you ever had to face the betrayal of someone you trusted? Leave in the comments as you reacted and what you would do in Elena's place. If this story of intelligent overcoming injustice has inspired you, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that sometimes the greatest betrayals are actually the best gifts we can receive.